All right, welcome back, everyone, to the W Sports Podcast, where you just got to listen. Jimothy and Tubby are back at it again because we have a whole week of sports as we are right into the dog days of summer. And that means one thing, that baseball is right around the All-Star break, which we're going to talk about. But we also have the college football and training camps for the NFL starting literally any week now. It's going to be incredibly fun. So, Tubby, welcome back to the show, man.
What's up? It's another week that we're closer to football season.
Yes. Yeah. I have a buddy of mine that I work with, and I told him, I said, 9 days. And he's like, dude, I just can't. So, like, every time we interact, that's what it's about, is a college football game. And I said, hey, just so you know, once you hit Wednesday, it'll be your last Wednesday without college football. I'm just saying, like, the rest of your life, you can have college football video game back again on this PS5. And it's just so great. It's just a sign of things to come. I'm starting to see on ESPN, since I was traveling this last week, I was in Atlanta. I never watch ESPN really these days, but I am at a hotel for a little bit, and on the little ticker it has training camp days. Rookie was when they report, and it's just nice to see that on the screen again.
Yeah, it's getting close. I'm ready for it. Seeing all this stuff. I mean, you still got a bunch of questions, out there. What's going to happen with Ayuk? Because he's going to get traded. T. Higgins, sign his deal. Will they be able to find something long term? Jamar Chase, same thing. I mean, you got all these questions with some of these big name wide receivers and other players out there. It's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, and I feel like, and we could just go real quick off the cuff. Give me the three results that you think for those three players: Chase, T. Higgins, and Brandon Ayuk. Where do you think they end up?
So I think Ayuk gets traded. I don't think that they're going to keep him. Sounds like talks are pretty far away.
Mm-hmm.
I think Chase will get his contract, and it'll be a pretty sizable contract. CD Lamb, we can throw CD in there too. CD will get paid. Mm-hmm. I don't see there any way that they can get rid of CD Lamb after the season he had. I think T. Higgins will play his contract out, and you never know. Depending on what happens throughout the season, maybe he gets moved partway through the season to another team that's willing to pay him.
Yeah. Well, so here's what I feel. First two, yes. For T. Higgins, I think he's done. I don't think they're going to be able to re-sign him, not with the money and all that stuff. But I'm not convinced this T. Higgins hype yet. I know he's 25, but I think of all the talent that we've had wide receivers come into the league, and I don't necessarily put him up there in that same echelon. Now, what he has done is be productive when he's been out there. Would have had probably another 1,000-yard year this last year. He probably would have had 10 touchdowns, which is pretty good. But when I look, maybe 8 touchdowns. But I don't see a number one wide receiver for him, and I think he wants number one wide receiver money.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think he's a number one. I think he's maybe, top 3 best number 2s in the NFL, which isn't a bad thing. But, yeah, he's definitely not a number one.
He screams one of those players that the Falcons maybe or the Jags or the Cardinals are going to go throw a ton of money at to be that number one wide receiver whenever he becomes a free agent. Because there's no way that Cincinnati can do this. But that's why he'll go get paid, right? Why you can't go get paid in the NFL. So that's why I see him, eventually. But I see him this year finishing out unless something disastrous happens in Cincinnati. But all right, all that being said, we're actually going to we started with football, but we're going to actually start with some baseball because the MLB All-Star Game rosters came out just today because it's Sunday and we're right before the All-Star Game itself. So, Tubby, real quick, how important are All-Star Games now? Like, they're good for Hall of Fame resume, but in the reality of what we watch baseball, is this really a big deal?
No. I mean, the All-Star Game really means nothing anymore. At least, in the early 2000s, they put a stipulation on it, home field advantage, so it gave the guys something to play for. Now it doesn't matter because most of these guys that are on the team are going to more than likely won't play. And so they're going to have people alternate in for them. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of getting into the aspect of the NBA All-Star Game and the Pro Bowl where it just doesn't really matter at all.
Yeah. So the Pro Bowl, what they ended up doing was flag football, all the skill stuff. I like the skill stuff. I really do. Home run derby will obviously stick around. But can you see baseball doing a skill show?
Oh, I mean, we need to bring back the catchers, skills challenge. I mean, that thing back in the day was, electric. Seeing guys like Benito Santiago, pop time and stuff like that. Trying to hit the targets. Yeah, I think that would be fun to see bring something like that back.
Yeah, how fast you can get, first to home, stuff like that. Just little things like that. They're like, hey, yeah, I knew he was fast, but good Lord, he just absolutely stole the show.
They need to try to do what the NHL All-Star has done, where they had that big showcase, right before. Because I don't watch the NHL All-Star game, but I watch the skills challenge because it's fun. It's fun to watch. They have like the fastest shot, hardest hit. Balls, something like that. Like you said, first to home. Who's the fastest? Stuff like that. I think would be fun to watch.
Let's get Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, Ellie De La Cruz, O'Neal Cruz, guys like that, and see who can hit the ball the hardest. And just let them at. All you're doing is trying to unleash. I don't care if it's a double. I just want to see who can get the highest exit velo. That would be so much fun. You get those guys, and Giancarlo Stanton, he's hurt now, but he just closes his eyes and swings anyway. So he's built for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it would be a cool thing for them to do. Maybe it'd get more hype around the All-Star game for the baseball. Yeah,
and I think it's important to remember that it is a big deal when it comes to Hall of Fame resume. If you go your whole career and don't have an All-Star game, it's going to be tough, but the way they vote on it. But I will say why they started the MLB All-Star game is way different today than what it was back then, right? Yeah. You didn't get to watch all your teams. You didn't ever get to see these players play all together, and now you do, especially with interleague play and the fact that you at least get 3 games against every single team. There's a good chance that you're going to be able to watch every single player. So it lost a little bit of that oomph, and I like the idea of the skills challenge, that kind of stuff, to really bring a little bit of that back. So I don't know. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the rosters. We're going to start with the American League, and so for catcher, Adley Rutschman, no doubt. Definitely makes sense to me. Vladimir Guerrero's at first base. Jose Altuve, Jose Ramirez at third base. I think that makes sense. Gunnar Henderson at shortstop. All right, I'm good with that so far. Aaron Judge, Stephen Kwan, Juan Soto, and Yordan Alvarez will round up the rest of the lineup. Any of those that you think, I don't know?
No, I think that's pretty spot on with the, with how the season has gone so far. I think that every single one of those guys are absolutely deserving to be starters this year.
Yeah, I think the one that is toughest, let me see if I can find positions only, was first base. Would you have had anyone besides Vlad, who's almost, he's really come back. He's hitting 295 right now, 13 home runs, 52 RBIs. But, maybe a guy, you talked about him last week, Josh Naylor. I know his average isn't as high, but he's had such a good impact on this season. Would he have been someone that should have maybe snuck in?
Yeah, possibly with as well as the Guardians' offense is. He's a huge part. What is he at? I think he's up to 23 home runs now?
Just 21 right now.
21, okay. Yeah, still. Still, a pretty good number for a guy, especially for an offense where we were questioning where the offense was going to come from this year and what the offense is going to look like. So, yeah, I think there's an argument. Maybe he's had a better overall, start to now season than Vladimir Guerrero did, because Vladdy started out real slow. But he came on really hot the last month and a half. So it's kind of one of those things, maybe since it's Vladdy, popularity, won out. But still, I think it's kind of – I'm not super – it's not one of those where I go, oh, man, he totally got snubbed. Mm-hmm. But I could see the argument, especially if you're a Guardians fan, go, hey, look at this. We have a much better record than they do.
Yeah.
And our guys
I like that aspect of it, too, the record coming in, the team play. The only one I'm really frustrated by is how bad the second basemen are in the American League right now. Jose Altuve, there's really no other solid option, so it just makes sense.
Can we just put Bobby Witt at second?
Dude, that would be great. That is the way to fix this. Let Bobby play second. For him not to start with the season he is having right now, even for the Royals, same thing as what you talk about Josh Naylor. Yeah. That's like, oh, man, that is tough. But
it's tough because the season Gunner's having, you can't not have Gunner start either. But the thing is, because Gunner's second in the AL in home runs, the kid's just having an incredible season, and maybe Bobby's having a lot better season than a lot of people give credit for. And I still think that you put Bobby on one of these teams with a lot better offense, Bobby's numbers are going to be even bigger than they are now. But still, it's hard to you can't keep Gunnar out with the season that he's playing.
Oh yeah, there's no way.
Yeah,
Gunnar and Adley, yeah, check absolutely. Go ahead, get him in the game. Shohei Aaron Judge and Juan Soto both making it again. That makes sense to me. Jordan probably the best in the game right now. Just makes sense. So we can move on to the National League. So for catcher, we have Willem Contreras. Again, no brainer for me. Bryce Harper, Ketel Marte, Alec Boehm at third base. Trey Turner, Jurickson Profar at outfield, Fernando Tatis, Christian Yelich, and then, of course, Shohei Ohtani. This lineup is not the same star-studded group that you have in the American League. I mean, when you look at this, these are good players, but this is not the same.
No, it's definitely not. I mean, the question will be, will Bryce play? He's banged up right now.
I mean, there's no reason to play, right?
Yeah, so more than likely, a guy like Freddie Freeman will probably slot in there. I think there's still – it's great. Willem Contreras, I think, is kind of a toss-up between him and Will Smith. I think what Will Smith's done, he has definitely cooled off compared to what he did at the beginning of the season. But, yeah, I mean, catcher-wise, that's the one position where I can go, man, there's a argument, with that one, who starts and who doesn't. But I mean, honestly, I don't think that you could go wrong with either guy because both of them have had incredible seasons.
Oh yeah, they're really the two top guys, and I would have loved to see this 3-man race had Wilson Contreras not fractured his form on that catcher interference play, but. Because I mean, he's been great even since he came back, and JT Realmuto has clearly fallen back a little bit. He's still really good. It's just obvious that it's a little bit different now, and he's even been injured a little bit. So, San Diego's Kyle Higa.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, but he would have been probably third. He's just a classic catcher right now, not a great batting average. But anybody else on this team? Any outfielders that you're just like, I would have rather seen this. I mean, Profar makes sense. He's had a really, really great first half. You talked about him last week. Brian Reynolds could have been someone who had a shot as a Pirate, didn't make it. Teoscar Hernandez, your guy on your team, he's also had such productive. It's just the average is not there, and he does strike out a bit. But
yeah, I'm going to say Reynolds and Hernandez I'm pretty sure both made the reserve team. So it's not like they both were completely left off. But yeah, Profar, I think Profar – I love the fact that Profar in the NL for the season that he's had, and he's kind of came out of nowhere and exploded, and then Stephen Kwan getting the starting job, the starting nod with the season that he's had, and now, played enough games, had enough batting, at bats. Now he's the leader in the AL and batting average because it took until I think Monday or Tuesday of this week for him to hit that threshold to be considered for the batting title, and so now it might throw a wrench into things because for a little bit we were looking at Judge going, man, triple crown potential, but that was without Stephen Kwan, and now Kwan, he's about 50 points higher than what Judge is batting, so you may not quite see the triple crown, but you never know. Kwan could stumble.
Yeah, who would you rather have on your team the second half? You only get it for the second half. Stephen Kwan or Luis Ariz?
Give me Kwan.
I know. Isn't that crazy? Like what we saw with this guy last year, even though he had a good start, but it was like, man, he's a good baseball player, but I don't know how good he is about being productive. And he just looks like he has the speed and the runs more so than what I see with Ariz. I was going to do.
He has risen the power numbers this year. I think that's another big thing. He's up the power numbers, but he's kept the average, and that's a big deal. I mean, because from Arias, you're not going to get power. The back to ball, yeah, we know that's going to be there. But now Kwan's thrown in this. I can hit, for power. I'm a lot, more of a threat on the bases also, and I'm probably a better defender. So I mean, the total package wise, Stephen Kwan, I think.
Yeah,
is the only right answer.
Yeah. Alec Boehm, you're good with him. I mean, the dude has 70 RBIs. Can you tell me, not qualified, but it doesn't even have to qualify batting title. So how many plate appearances they have so far, but just pure RBIs, regardless of at-bats. See, Boehm is at 70. Do you know who's in second place at third base in the NL?
In the NL.
Yeah. Or can you give me how many RBIs they have? Like It's a tight group right now.
There's not a whole lot of good third basemen in the NL.
Exactly.
I mean, Manny Machado has fell off drastically.
Yes.
Austin Riley has had a very down season. Nolan Arenado has fallen off drastically. Max Muncy got hurt. So my guess is going to be Austin Riley, but I don't know if that's right.
Austin Riley only has 37 RBIs.
Yeah.
RBIs right now, which is wild. That's about half of Alec Boehm's 70. Second place, Christopher Morel, who's hitting 199. He has 46 RBIs. Then Ryan McMahon, Matt Chapman, who has absolutely been on fire the last week plus, Jaime Candelario, and then Eugenio Suarez, Nolan Arenado, and Austin Riley make that up. But this is what's crazy is you look at the third baseman, and this is some really great names, and they are just duds this year. It's falling off the list.
Yeah, I mean, third base has become a position where there's not a whole lot of high-profile players really in the major leagues at all at that position. It's kind of we're seeing the inverse of what it was, in the like early 20 teens, where you had a lot of big-name third basemen, and the shortstop weren't quite there, and everyone was looking for the shortstops. Well, now everyone's got a shortstop. Now everyone's looking for that third baseman because you're not being – I mean, really, there's not a whole lot of great third basemen in the major leagues right now.
I know. It's a weird world. All right, we can go ahead and go back to the American League pitchers. You have Tyler Anderson for the Angels. I mean, every single team has to make it, so Tyler Anderson makes it. Corbin Burns, of course, Emmanuel Clase, Garrett Crochet, Logan Gilbert, Clay Holmes, Tanner Houck. Houck?
Yeah.
Houck, okay. Seth Lugo from the Royals made it. Mason Miller, Cole Reagans, also from the Royals, and Tariq Skubal, which totally makes sense, and Kirby Yates.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it sounds about right. There's not really – I can't really think of any pitchers off the top of my head they probably should have been in, because with the fact that everyone has to get someone in, I'm glad that the whole White Sox situation didn't pan out the way they did, and Crochet got in like he deserved to because of the season Crochet's had. Whether or not he's still there will be the question in a couple weeks. But I think that for them at least they got that right, got him in there instead of just putting the worst person possible. Yeah.
I like the silliness of it, but no, it's like that year that the Cardinals and the Royals were both really good, and it stuffed those ballots, and it was like we're just gonna have the Cardinals and Royals and one other player, and like this is terrible.
Yeah,
so we can't have that anymore, and luckily we don't have that part of it. But in the NL, we got Tyler Glasnow, your Dodger. There you go. Ryan Helsley, Cardinal, is the one Cardinal that made the starting team. Jeff Hoffman, Shota Imanaga, Ronaldo Lopez, Chris Sale, who I called this. I said he was going to dominate. We have Tanner Scott, Paul Skeens, which you mentioned, I think, right before we hit record. Matt Strom, Ranger Suarez. He has continued his dominant first half into a starter, technically. And then Robert Suarez, Logan Webb. It's his first one, which is crazy to me in that market that he's in. And then Zach Wheeler. I think this group looks better than the group in the American League. Like it's hard to go against it, but this is where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you're looking pure starter wise, I think.
What are you talking about? You got Ryan Helsley's leading the league in saves.
I know, but you also, look at the other relief pitchers in that, in the NL compared to what you have in the AL. Helsley's had a great season. I mean, he won reliever of the month. So, not taken away from that. I'm saying the rest of the guys, because a couple of those guys were we got to put someone in.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah. The Phillies have quite a few. Pittsburgh getting Paul Skeens. Definitely. The way he has come, and it hasn't hit the wall or had those spot starts where it's been bad. He's just been so good. So relievers, we can go ahead and go into reserves real quick. Catchers, American League got Salvador Perez. He's cooled off since that really great 6-ish weeks, but I think that makes sense. He's just a staple.
Yeah.
Will Smith, your boy.
Yep.
He made it. In the infielders for the AL, it is Carlos Correa, Rafael Devers, Josh Naylor, who we talked about before, Isaac Paredes, Marcus Semien, and Bobby Witt Jr. did make it as a reserve. All good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. National League, you got C.J. Abrams, Pete Alonso, Luis Arraez, Mookie Betts, Ellie De La Cruz, Freddie Freeman, and Ryan McMahon for the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, I mean, not a whole lot to argue.
Yeah, Cardinals are playing the Nationals this weekend in DC, which looked like it was 130 degrees over there. It's absolutely a nightmare to be playing baseball there. C.J. Abrams absolutely attacked a pitch, like first pitch. And Lance Lynn was trying to go deep into the game despite knowing that he's going to give up 6. He gave up 11. I mean, it was just awful. I mean, everything was flying out of that game.
Yeah, James Wood had 5 RBIs in the first 3 innings. Can we go ahead and now officially say that the Nationals have won that trade? I mean,
yes. You have to. For people who don't remember that trade, can you recap what that trade was like? Who the Nationals have, and obviously they don't even have Juan Soto in San Diego anymore.
So right now they've got 3 guys that were in that trade. Mackenzie Gore, who's had a pretty solid season. He's had a couple of rough starts, but he's still a young, up-and-coming pitcher, I think. C.J. Abrams, who's had an incredible season. James Wood, who I thought at the beginning of the season was the top prospect in baseball, even over Jackson Holliday, and all he did was tear it up through the minor league system, and then he's come up to the majors this last week, and all he's done in his first week is tear it up also. The guy is massive. Then you also have who else did they get? They got another outfielder, Robert Hassel, who is another top prospect for the Nationals.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a rough season last year, kind of picking it up a little bit more, production wise than what we expect. And then for the Padres, all you got was Soto really and Josh Bell for half the season.
Yeah, Josh Bell. That one was such a bad trade. And what I'd say, like, if they'd won a World Series, made the World Series, all right, at least you gave yourself a shot. But that didn't happen, and the Padres do what the Padres did, at least at that point. I'm just saying, it was a disaster.
And you got to blame yourself, too, because maybe if you didn't have the season last year that you had, where you had all the expectations after the year before where you beat the Dodgers in the playoffs, you make it to the NL, championship, and then all the expectations this, last season where everyone's like, they're going to take out the Dodgers in the West. They're going to, push for a World Series spot. You don't even make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, was a big, probably selling point for Soto to go, I'm good. I'll go ahead and leave. Whether or not I'm going to get the contract offer from the Padres or not, I'm going to go ahead and leave because it's all hype and the clubhouse situation just doesn't seem like it was the best at the time.
People don't necessarily like Juan Soto, but the dude does have a ring. So give him credit. And I will say, watching him and the Yankees were here in Kansas City, I was like, he looks like he should be in a Yankee uniform. And honestly, don't hate him in a Yankee uniform. I'm cool with him.
I still don't like him. But
you don't like the Yankees. Like, I like the Yankees too. I always like, I'm just saying, it's like, I'm not upset about the shuffle thing anymore. That's fine.
Yeah, no, I'd hit the dude. I'd be getting ejected from games. I'd be getting suspended.
Yeah. Do you remember, like in MVP baseball games in the mid 2000s, early 2000s, you could charge the mound, you could do all this stuff. I miss that. I wish you still could.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's continue on. Because we're at 23 minutes already. All right. So outfielders for the American League, you got Jarren Duran, Riley Green, Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, I mean, Jarren Duran is having an incredible season.
Yeah.
Goes from the laughing stock of the major leagues for a little bit last season with some of the blunders and stuff he had out in the outfield to having his, the season he's having right now. I think it's great for him. Riley Green, he's the only, one of the few positives right now for the Tigers who have vastly underwhelmed, I think, for most people's consideration.
Yeah. National League, another Dodger makes it. Teoscar Hernandez, Jackson Merrill for the Padres, Heliot Ramos, and Brian Reynolds, who you mentioned before.
I mean, Jackson Merrill, he was my Rookie of the Year pick. Well, I don't think it's going to happen because Paul Skeens has come up and just been absolutely lights out. and Skeens will more than likely win the National League Rookie of the Year. But the season, especially of recent, what Jackson Merrill has done, he's been a big part of the kind of somewhat the resurgence that the Padres have had over the last few, about a month and a half or month, where there was a 9-game span where he had 6 home runs in 9 games. The young man has really shown out and been a big part of that offense that is lacking some, with Machado not playing very well and Bogart's not playing so well, and trying to find other offense outside of Tatis, and Merrill's been that.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, because they did have 2 other DHs that did make it. Marcell Ozuna totally makes sense. The dude is the only Braves player right now who's legit on the offensive side, really been productive on every single level. But they also had from the Cleveland Guardians, most people probably aren't going to recognize his name, David Fry. I don't even think we talked about him this whole year. David Fry, his first All-Star selection. Does that name shock you?
Yeah.
Flat out. Yeah. So he came up, not a highly touted prospect, but if you look at him this year, and again, the DH thing is kind of interesting how it goes now, but he's 28 years old. He has less than 300 career at-bats, but this year he has 8 home runs, 33 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, and a 300 average, and an OBP above 400, and he has a slugging percentage above 5, which is just wild. Is he deserving?
Why not? At this point, who else are you going to put in that spot at that point? Who else is deserving? We talked about it. Team record-wise, he's obviously a big part of what's going on. Batting 300, 8 home runs or whatever. It's probably the only chance the guy's going to ever get to be an all-star. Just go ahead and give him the nod.
So I didn't see his name anywhere, but Brent Rooker.
Yeah, You got Mason Miller in there, so you done your due diligence for the A's.
That's true, but his numbers are still pretty good. His
numbers are good,
very close, and he has more at bats? Yeah, about 100 more at bats.
But I think it also at that point it comes down to we want to reward the teams for playing good compared to the teams that aren't. So we're going to try to find those guys that are on these teams that are playing, winning baseball, instead of going, well, yeah, you're doing good, even since you're on a bad team. You already did Mason Miller. You got your A guy in there, and that's all you need. I don't need another A's in there, unless they're just having like an in crazy season where they're batting 300, got 27 home runs, 50, 60 RBIs. That would make sense.
He's close to that. But yeah, you're right. He is not there. So I'm fine with it. It was the only one I felt he might feel snubbed. So there's the De La Cruz that no one talks about that I really like, and I hope he gets traded this trade deadline. Miami Marlins, Bronny De La Cruz. Right. Let that guy go play somewhere. He's a great athlete. I would love to see him on the Cardinal uniform. I don't.
Yeah, about one of the few bright spots with that team this year.
All right. So speaking of that, any key things? As you go into the All-Star, then it's 2 weeks until the deadline. Any of those rumblings that you're like, hey, be on the lookout for maybe 1 or 2 stars that you're seeing? I could see that trade happening.
We know more than likely Garrett Crochet is going to get traded. With the season he's had this year, best season he's had in his career, I think there's a good chance that him and Luis Roberts from the White Sox, who's had a very, very down season for, what he, should be doing. Mm-hmm. They're both going to get traded more than likely. You look at the Jays and you wonder, I know Vladdy said he wants to stay, so they'll more than likely keep Vladdy, but do we see a guy like Bo Bichette get traded? Maybe a Chris Bassett. Mm-hmm. Someone from, that team. You mentioned Brent Rooker. Do we see Rooker more than likely get traded? Mason Miller, I saw where, they have talked about, they would want a big haul for him. And now they're him-hauling around, acting like maybe they don't want to trade him, which if they don't, it would be the most A's thing ever. And because a reliever isn't going to make your roster that much better. And so, yeah, the fact that they would more than likely keep him would be insane because they need to trade him. a guy like JD Martinez more than likely going to get traded. Great DH if you have a team that's, need a DH, need some, a bat, a great mentor in the clubhouse. JD is a great guy to go out and get.
Yeah, and a rental too. So it's not like you're going to have a long contract with him. I definitely agree. So let me ask you this. I know that the NL is a bunch of okay, and the AL there's some top heavy teams, but there's going to be some shuffling in these extra playoff spots. Because of the extra playoff spots, people are going to be more likely to be standing pat, or I'll tweak the edges, but I'm not really going to buy. Can you tell me maybe one or two teams that, hey, you're going to want to buy, but you should sell?
Let's see.
Maybe you're like, listen, your team is just not that good. Like, you can't make this win. So either sell some pieces and look for next year, or maybe it's, hey, you really the signs are there.
Let's try to think. What do we have? I mean, the Cardinals are going to be a team that has played, pretty good over the last month. I mean, I think that since May 12th, they're like 31-18.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's a good frustrating, but it's frustrating.
Yeah, at this point, do you really think that you can be contenders in the playoff? In the NL. I mean, the NL is weaker, but you've got an aging Goldie who looks like he has lost something. Arenado, aging,
doesn't hit the ball hard.
Something. Yeah, defensive-wise, he has lost. Defensive-wise, also you got Lance Lynn on short contract. Gibson on a short contract. Maybe you're move some of those guys there. I think an interesting team is going to be the Texas Rangers. Mm-hmm. What do they do? Do they buy? If I'm them, I don't do anything. I stay pat and hope that these guys that are hurt
actually play well.
Yeah, and your offense turns a leaf, and we see the offense that we know can be there. And you get help from Scherzer when he's fully healthy. He's only made like 4 starts. DeGrom's coming back. Tyler Mahley's coming. And going to be pitching soon. So there's 3 big time starters that could potentially impact you going forward, but I could see them getting a little antsy and going, maybe we need to make a move and end up trading someone, one of their bigger prospects that, in a couple of years, like a Owen White, who is a big time pitching prospect, trade him and they get desperate and maybe try to go out and get a guy like Garrett Crochet, who, has had a great year, but, past history, guy hasn't been able to stay healthy. So do they, make a mistake kind of like they did last year with Cole Reagans? Mm-hmm. Traded Cole Reagans for Aroldis Chapman, and you won the World Series, but it wasn't because of Aroldis Chapman. You had to pull Aroldis Chapman out of quite a bit in the postseason because he wasn't able to command pitches, and then you traded one of the best young pitchers in baseball right now. Yeah.
Teams that are going to say, hey, I'm going to sell or tweak the edges. The number one, I think, that shouldn't go into buy mode are, yes, absolutely the Cardinals for what you just said. So we don't need to spend extra time on that. Their bullpen is too good. So why not tweak it right now and see if you can make it with some younger core pieces. We talked about this previously. So the next one, I honestly think the Kansas City Royals, the ownership is not going to go into full buy mode, but that bullpen is brutal. Some of it's just been rough. And so if I was a Kansas City Royal fan, I would rather, hey, let's go for 88 wins this year. Hopefully do, and then I want to tweak for next year. So if I'm doing anything, it's actually more of a slight sell for next year, and knowing that I can rebuild a bullpen in 1 year. For example, we talked about this. We told you this last year, everybody, was that the Cardinals, I always said, blow that bullpen up. It doesn't work. And if you would tell me 2.5 years ago that a bullpen wouldn't have, you would have Helsley, Hicks, Genesis Cabrera, and Giovanni Gallegos, that's probably what I'd say. That should, in theory, be the best lockdown. Dudes couldn't hit the strike zone. Terrible bullpen. Redo it. The Cardinals look way better this year. People were out on Andrew Kittredge. Loved the signing. Was all about it. Because even though he had been hurt, it was a great signing. So I think it's one of those teams. I think you're out of the Texas Rangers. I think that Astros should be buyers because I think there's blood in the water. And, dude, it's so annoying. They have a window wide open to take this division back again, and it's so dumb. I would also waver the Red Sox. I don't actually think are a deep playoff run team. I think they're a playoff team, but I don't think they're going to make a deep run. So I wouldn't go too far in this year.
Yeah, that was another team I was thinking was the Red Sox. Is like it's almost like you are the Diamondbacks of last year. You got all these young players that are playing great. Do we realistically? I mean, because last year at this point, we realistically didn't think the Diamondbacks could make the run that they made last year. Do we think the same thing for the Red Sox? Maybe they go out and make one trade or something like that. But do we realistically think in that AL that they can make that run and beat the Yankees and beat the Orioles and beat the Astros or the Mariners or the Twins or the Guardians in a 3, 5, or 7 game series? I don't think so. So I would, if I was them, I'd probably stand pat. Maybe trade a guy like a Kenley Jansen, get something back because someone's going to be looking for a closer.
Bullpen depth, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. All right, so we got 3 minutes to wrap up these final points. So should the Cubs, before we move on to other stuff, but should the Cubs feel like, should we have made this signing for Craig Counsell? I mean, looking at this team, this is clearly going to be a selling team, and they are last in the division. Now they're close. I mean, there are a couple of games they'd be in third, but still last in the division, heading into almost the All-Star break.
Yeah, absolutely. You paid him as the highest manager in baseball, and he had a solid run with the Brewers, but they never made a lot of noise in the playoffs. And to me, he never proved that he was one of the best managers in baseball with what they were able. Yeah, you were able to win in a weaker division for for the most part. Outside of the Cardinals, you didn't really have a whole lot of fight within that division because the Reds were bottom dwellers, the Pirates were bottom dwellers, the Cubs were bottom dwellers for the last 3 or 4 years. So I didn't think it was a great hire to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought it was a good hire, but I wasn't sure it was the right fit. Madden was such the right fit for what that team needed, and I feel like this isn't quite the right personality fit for this. Chicago Cubs, they're a very unique fan base, and that culture of the team itself, the franchise, is not like everything else. So I think maybe it's not the right fit, but time will tell. They still have plenty of time. They could win 10 in a row, and you'd be like, 52-49? Yeah, absolutely. Second in the division. There you go. But
yeah.
10 wins in a row. Yankees, I mean, some of the stuff they had last week was absolutely brutal. Also, real quick, Jared, thanks so much for jumping in the chat, man, and joining the show today. But should the Yankees be worried?
Yeah, I think there's worries right now. Is
Garrett Cole also yesterday?
Yeah, Cole has not pitched great since coming back. And in the last 20 games, their offense hasn't really hit outside of Judge.
Mm-hmm.
Their OPS is 699. Their opponent's OPS is 599 or 899.
Yeah, that's big. 200.
Yeah, they have 17. The Yankees have 17 home runs compared to their opponents having 35 home runs, double the amount of home runs. Judge has 7 of those, and then they're 15. They're 5-15 in the last 20, and they have their team ERA is 6.69 in that span. And this, for me, it's a lot of what's happened over the last 2 or 3 seasons where they start out just scorching hot and on fire. And then about this time, about All-Star break, trade deadline, we see them hit this big slump, and then they can never recover. And this is why I think a lot of people are surprised that Aaron Boone's still there and that Cashman is still there with, the past history. And now we're seeing it creep up again. Are they going to be able to get over that hump? I'm sure they're going to be buyers. They're going to, do some trading. But how much are they willing to give up? Because we know they weren't willing to give up, Jason Dominguez this offseason. They weren't willing to give up Spencer Jones this offseason. So who are you willing to give up to make your team better? And who are you going to go after? Because if you're going after some of these big dogs, you're going to have to give up one of those guys. And it's, what are you willing to do?
I am not worried about the Yankees. Not this year. I saw them play against the Royals, and that was the last series they won, by the way. It was the one against the Royals mid-June. So it is almost been a month since they've won. Now, if they win tonight, and I think it's 0-0, they'll win against the series or against the Red Sox. But I'm not worried about this team. Not right now, not the way it's built. And I think the pitching will have to be they'll have to figure it out. I'm worried that Cole's. You're not going to see him on the team in the playoffs just for whatever injury. That's what I'm worried about. I'm not counting him out though. I can't. I can't.
This is what we've seen every year. Yeah, you have a Juan Soto, so at least you have another piece in that offense. But we're looking at guys like at the beginning of the season when they were on this, huge tear. Oswaldo Cabrera was on fire. Mm-hmm. He's not even in the major leagues anymore.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Volpe was on fire. He's, fallen off quite a bit compared to what he was doing at the beginning of that season.
Mm-hmm.
These guys that were such integral parts at the beginning of the season from the hot start have cooled off so much. And this is my worry is that, Soto and Judge can do all they want, but who's going to pick up the rest of it? Rice has, played good since they called him up, but this is a young guy. Are you betting on him to be that guy? I mean, Verdugo is very underperformed. Trent Grisham, getting him, he is very underperformed there too. I just don't know if there's enough offensive firepower outside of Judge and Soto to keep this team going like we saw at the beginning of the year. And like I said, we've seen this time and time again, them start out so good and then just fall hard. And then, last year they didn't even make playoffs. So, I'm not saying that's going to happen this year, but we're talking about a team that, last 2 years have had the best record in baseball, for the first couple months, and then go on these massive losing streaks.
I hear you. This year, I'm not worried about it. That's all I'm saying. But I hear you. Not worried about it. We'll see. And I've been known to be wrong. And if someone was going to listen, if one of our listeners was like, "Hey, I've just got to listen," you probably should listen to Tubby. Right? He knows pretty well what he's talking about. But I've seen them play. I believe in the Yankees this year. All right. Well, let's go. We're going to go ahead and transition a little bit, unless there's any baseball news that you think we missed out on. But NBA Summer League is here, and Bronny James is, the most anticipated debut for a number 55 overall pick. Has his first game. He goes 4 points for those who didn't know, but everyone probably does because you probably looked it up because you were curious, just like we were. 4 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 for 9 on his field goals, 0 for 3 on threes. Then he goes on, and Tubby, you mentioned this right before we hit record. He misses today's game with knee soreness or discomfort, something like that. Should people be surprised?
No. This is what everyone should expect. He's the number 55 pick in the draft. And the only reason why everyone's anticipating this is because of who his dad was or is. It's not anything. If you expected, big things from him, you probably were just going, "Oh, well, it's LeBron's son, so he must be good."
Yeah, which we should have learned our lesson. It's not, you don't get Del Curry, Steph Curry, and Stephen Curry all the time. It's just so rare.
Yeah, it just doesn't happen. This is where people are like, "Oh, well, at least LeBron James' son made the NBA." Go back and look at Michael Jordan's son. He played much better in college than Bronny did. He just didn't make the NBA because you know why? Even though his dad owned the team, his dad didn't draft him. His dad knew that he wasn't good enough for the NBA.
Yeah. What you get, if you guys want Tubby's official take on this, go to last week's episode and listen to it. He broke down, why we shouldn't be upset that he got drafted, but understanding why he got drafted was part of it. The whole picture, it was a great job by Tubby last week. Go to last week's episode. You can download it, watch it on YouTube, wherever you want to, and then kind of get that full take because it was a pretty good conversation. WNBA news. Caitlin Clark goes out and is the first rookie in WNBA history to get a triple-double, and she does it against one of the best teams in the league. She just keeps doing it.
Yeah, just look at the attendance numbers and what she has done for that league. And as much as these other women want to be upset about it because she's getting, the limelight, you should be happy because she is bringing viewers to your, they broke the attendance record the other night, against Chicago when they played Angel Reese. They broke the attendance record. Be excited because she's bringing new eyes to your league. And when she does things like this, she's bringing even more attraction to your league that you otherwise wouldn't have.
Yeah, well, I know, and like you said, there's plenty of people who are don't want her to succeed, and I think that happens when anytime you're the best at what you do or at the level that she was in college basketball, that you have those haters, right? I don't think it's everybody needed at the NBA. I think if you, but there is their fair share of vocal people who are like, oh, dang it, or when she has 10 turnovers, like 10 turnovers. Listen, they're gonna have those games. I think if you're like Tubby and myself and you're a little bit frustrated with the way the NBA is played, the kind of the lack of toughness, the lack of I don't know, fundamentals ish. Yeah. What's what I want to say here? The crispness. The crispness is gone. It's just kind of rounded edges. Yeah, sloppy. Okay, I can't think of the right word here. It's a sloppy way of describing it. This is a great way. Go watch the WNBA. You're not going to have all the insane dunks and stuff like that, but you are going to get some old basketball stuff that if you went out and you were like me and Tubby and you went and played 2-on-2 or 4-on-4 or whatever, you're just going to look like that, and you're going to oh yeah, that was a great pass. So I encourage everyone, go watch them. You know what? Turn on Caitlin Clark or any of the other teams. Go watch it.
She's an exciting player to watch. Some of those passes that she makes and the 3-pointers, you don't miss out on your 3-pointers when you watch her, if you're used to watching the NBA, because she can shoot from the logo also.
This is true. Yeah. All right. So let us go into, we went NBA sort of into Summer League. We went WNBA. We're going to go back to the NBA and recap some of the winners and losers from free agency so far. Give me maybe your biggest winner that you've seen so far.
Oklahoma City Thunder.
Okay. See, some people are saying they don't like this signing as much. The center from New York is that the big one we're talking about? I didn't really like it because he kind of disappeared later in the playoffs, but I don't necessarily believe that's his fault. But go ahead and give us why that's your biggest win.
And so I'm not going just based free agency. I'm going off season, partially because I love the Alex Caruso, deal. But I think the Hartenstein deal was exactly what they were missing on the inside, because as good of a player as Chet is, he's not a physical rebounder. And that's where they got beat up against the Dallas Mavericks, was Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively just destroying them on the boards because they are bigger physical centers. Hartenstein's going to bring that, physicality, but he's also an incredible passer if you watch him play. And then he said the Caruso deal, I love that deal. Then you bring back Aaron, you bring back Joe and Wiggins, and so you bring back a couple, integral parts that are good 3-point shooters. I think they absolutely, hit those holes that they needed. I think the Mavs going out and getting Klay Thompson and Najee Marshall, which we talked about this, and is like as soon as we got off, the live. Yeah, the Mavs signed Najee Marshall, which I wasn't expecting because they were expected to re-sign Derek Jones Jr. And so the Mavs last year, they had the second most open threes, but shot 17. They were 17th in the NBA in open 3-point percentage. Yeah. Now you bring in Klay Thompson, who shot 39% on open threes, Najee Marshall, who shot 38%, compared to losing Tim Hardaway Jr. and Derek Jones Jr., who both only shot 31% on open threes. So now you bring in more, shooters, and I think Najee Marshall is a better defender than both, Tim Hardaway Jr. and Derek Jones Jr. He was the 6th highest ranked defensive player in the NBA last year in defensive rating. So I think they did a great job. Those two teams really hit what they were needing.
Yeah, some of the ones I loved the Alex Caruso. I thought that was a good one. It made sense. And I think he does bring something that's different than Giddey. Yeah. I think that's the team needs something. Off-season loser, the NBA. We lost Kemba Walker. He retires from the league. And you just go back to, that was college basketball, Big East tournament. I mean, you just can't have that anymore because it's just different. But that crossover is just beautiful. And to have guys like him retire, but Nick Batum, Clippers, got losers of the offseason. No, not the Nick Batum, but 2 years for this guy as at this time. All right, maybe it helps, but signing James Harden to the deal that they did, losing Paul George, of course, they're writing to the wall. This team is a bad offseason right now for the Clippers. They're one of my biggest losers so far.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. I'm not going to say they're losers. I think 76ers, they went out and got a guy that they think that can help. But this is something that I'm not big on Paul George. I don't think he's, this big superstar that everyone, thinks he is. And Brian Windhurst pretty much said exactly what I was thinking, but he got to say it on ESPN. But, basically said, we've had him. This will be the fourth time, where he's the biggest news of the offseason. He gets traded from Indiana to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then he resigns with Oklahoma City Thunder. Well, then he's traded to the Clippers in a signing trade, whatever. And now he's the biggest signing of the NBA free agency this year for the 76ers. But in all of that, what has it got those teams? Nothing.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Yeah, there's zero to show for it. Maybe that's just team construction, but I just don't know that. I don't know that he has it.
No, and the thing is, like, that as much as he got paid, they paid him like he's the, second best player on the team, and I think he's probably the third best player. I honestly believe in availability is your best ability. As great as Joel Embiid is, Tyrese Maxey to me is the best player on that team right now, and then Joel Embiid and Paul George. But it's just one of those things where he doesn't impact a team like you think he would. He's not as great a defender as he used to be. He's a good shooter, and he had a better season this year than he's had in the last couple of years with the Clippers. But I just don't see him as this big marquee signing that everyone tries to make it up to be like, oh yeah, they got so much better. Yeah, they got better, but did they get better than the Celtics? No.
That's point. Go ahead. Sorry, I'll jump in after that. Sorry.
Are they better than the Knicks? I don't think they are. I think the Knicks are the second best team in that conference now with what they've done. Yeah. So you got better, but did you get better than the teams ahead of you? I don't think so.
Yeah, and that's what I want to say is, when will people in the NBA realize it is not about building a big three?
Mm-hmm.
Your success rate is not nearly as good as it could be if you build from within and you have a great team culture. The Celtics, that's what they did. Right? They stayed the course. The people said trade one of them, Brown or Tatum. They didn't, and it worked. And not only did it work, we dominated, and it worked. No offense to your Mavs. I think teams just are not realizing the Knicks. They're starting to figure that out a little bit. They're more of a culture thing now, which is wild to be saying that out loud. I also want to point out, I'm tired of people being upset with the Lakers offseason. They have zero things they can do financially. Stop waiting for them to go get DeMar DeRozan, who did get traded and signed today. Or was it today?
Yeah.
This weekend, to the Kings. But they don't have any money. Stop asking. Stop hoping. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
No, I mean,
until LeBron is done, they're done in the offseason.
Yeah, and he waited too long to decide to not take the full max contract. He decided today not to take the full max. And so it took him out of that tax bracket down to the next tier where they could have signed and traded for DeMar DeRozan.
Mm-hmm.
But he waited a couple of days, a week too long to decide this, to make your team better. And to trade off a bad contract and, D'Angelo Russell or whatever. But you waited too long to do it, and now you can't go get that guy. And there's not really anyone else out there to go out and sign that, big name guys that are going to really impact your team like a DeMar DeRozan could have potentially done. And would he have moved the needle a whole lot for the Lakers? I don't think so. But yeah, it's just like you made this decision too late. If you would have made this decision last week, you probably could have got a DeMar DeRozan on this team because he's from LA. He wanted to play for the Lakers, but you waited too long to do this.
Yeah. So part of people, I mean, he has probably busier offseason than anybody else is LeBron because of all the extra stuff he does, but also the Olympics. But it's just like, man, make the decision. Like, how do you not have this ready, or at least you're talking about it, or making the decision because you know the impact of the offseason? But we briefly mentioned it. DeMar DeRozan, now a Sacramento King. Is this a good Sacramento King? Is this a competitive, deep playoff run if you can see this team in the Western Conference Finals?
No. Yeah. The West is way too deep And yeah, DeMar DeRozan's one of the most consistent players in the NBA, but you got to look at it and go, are they better than the Thunder? No. Are they better than the Nuggets? No. Are they better than the Wolves? No. Are they better than the Mavs? No. Are they better than the Grizzlies? If with a healthy Ja Morant? Probably not. I mean, there's still several teams ahead of them that they just aren't better than. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Well, so a couple of little things. I don't know that the Nuggets got really better this year. So maybe it's just getting healthier that helps them get a deep playoff run. We're talking so much about the NBA, really out of our soul here, but here we go, really diving into it. Let me ask you this. The Warriors. Are the Warriors better now that they've kind of broken up the pieces a little bit and they have a guy like Buddy Hield who does shoot three-pointers really, really well? Klay Thompson gets a fresh start in Dallas. We talked about Dallas. I think Dallas did get better this offseason. Definitely big winners in my mind. But did the Warriors even get better? Because the Warriors also have experience.
I wouldn't say they got better. I think they're probably about where they were. Now, if they are able to pull off a trade for like a guy like Lauri Markkanen, like they're saying, then they will definitely get better, because I don't know if there's a whole lot of I mean, like I said, Buddy Hield's a great shooter. Mm-hmm. And he can put up, a lot of threes. But outside of, Steph Curry, where's the consistent offense going to come from? Is going to be the biggest thing. So, I mean, Brandon Podzinski has a lot of upside and was the big reason why Klay Thompson didn't want to stay in Golden State. But if they're able to get a guy like Lauri, who we know is a all-star player who can shoot and can, make his own offense and all that stuff, then I think they definitely get better, and they can, maybe not get thrown in that conversation with the best teams, but maybe the next tier below.
Tier below, yeah, competitive, but you're not expecting them in the playoff, the Western Conference Finals. Is what I mean.
No,
and that's crazy.
No,
all right, dude, look who's in the chat. Did you see this?
Colin,
welcome back, man. Look at this, back in the chat. It just feels right.
I guilted him into it yesterday.
Did you really? Yeah. That's good. Sometimes it's what it takes. Did you say, man, you just got to listen, man? Come on.
Yeah, I was like, I guess he hates us now.
The Toronto Blue Jays have been bad. He's sad. What are you going to do? And they had this, that's this random thing. Toronto Blue Jays had this massive revamped baseball field, and it's just for this? Yeah, I know. Yeah, we do apologize for just switching from Mondays. My softball league, which I haven't been able to play since May because of my stupid knee. I'm on the IL. I'm on a contract holdout until I get to play the position. Yeah. Colin, do you since you're in the chat right now, I want to know: do you want the Blue Jays to be sellers, big time sellers? Like, what level on a scale of 1 to 10? How much do you want them to sell? We'll wait for his chat. He also plays softball on Sundays. Okay. All right. I didn't know this. Yeah. All right. You're hitting dingers. All right. Colin says yes in the chat. I realized that we're having this conversation and people they're listening to the podcast are like, what are these guys doing? Sell everyone. So you're saying Colin is a Blue Jays fan and he wants to sell Vlad. He wants to sell Bo Bichette. Whatever. Oh, man,
I mean, at this point, I don't disagree.
Okay.
You've underwhelmed the last couple of seasons when this was supposed to be the window.
This is the window.
Underwhelmed. Can you really? I mean, do you have the pieces to build? Around. It's not a destination, so I don't know.
Feel like Toronto should be a destination. That's a really cool city. From everything I've seen from people, it's a really cool city.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could understand it if they did, just because. I mean, you don't really have the pieces, especially in the.
Yeah, it's all about the haircut, lad. That's why he's getting better. Well, you can't knock it. I mean, that's one of those things I heard someone say. Like, there's a pitcher who said, "Hey, I will pay every reliever $10 if you will use the stupid cart to get here from the bullpen because you'll save your energy, you'll save your legs, you won't sweat as much." And the announcer said, "Yeah, but if you use it and you have a terrible thing, you'll never touch. No one's touching that cart, right?" So that's the thing. All about the haircut. Yeah, and maybe that is it. This just in. Vlad is a listener of the Tubby Sports Podcast. He saw Tubby's haircut and said, I got to get that. That's going to help me. Look at him now.
He said Tubby upped his game after he cut his hair. I got to do the same.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. We intended to get to quite a few things NFL-wise, but I think next week, with it being All-Star Sunday weekend, it might be a great time for us just to have kind of a football-focused episode. So if you came today and you were hoping to get NFL news, college football, all that kind of stuff, don't worry. We got you. We got you next week. We'll lean into it right before we get to Olympics, and we'll have some of that stuff coming up too.
Yeah, because I got a fun little game I want to play, next week. So we'll get into that with some NFL quarterbacks.
NFL, I like it. But, dude, that's just, everyone's talking about Dak Prescott, which is what kind of got in our show notes. Didn't make it. So if you saw our show notes and we didn't get to it, don't worry. We are going to get to it next week. But just want a big shout out to everyone who jumped into the chat with us today. Maybe you watched on YouTube, Facebook, or whatever it is that you're consuming the podcast. I want to say thank you guys so much for being a part of the podcast. You truly make this a ton of fun. And Tubby, thanks for always bringing it, dude. You bring it every single week. Tubby's not even 100%, y'all. And he is like, no, I'm going to go. That's what we got to do. We got to talk about it.
Yeah, I was worried the voice wouldn't make it, but we're good.
Yeah.
We're solid.
We are solid. Another July 4th in the books. Another great summer kickoff holiday, I guess, was our Memorial Day. And now here we are midsummer, essentially, in July 4th, which is wild to say. But the sports never stops, and neither does Tubby, neither does myself, because we're going to be back at it again next Sunday, back at our normal time, 6:30. But till then, we'll see you guys next week.